Okay, guys, I'm doing something different today, just in case there's so much camera problem like we had. So I'm going to record the lesson, pre-record the lesson, and I'll be pausing it throughout the lesson, so don't worry. Anyway, this is called synthetic division. And after I do this, you're going to say, why in the world did I teach you long division? And it's because you can't always use synthetic division. You can only use synthetic division if you're dividing by what's called a linear. A linear means that this part right here, the divisor, has to be an exponent of 1, at least for what we're doing. For our purposes, that's the only synthetic division we're going to teach you. Okay, there is another way, but we're only going to do linear synthetic division. So here we go. You're going to like this, and again, you've probably seen it in Algebra 1. This is where you can go to watch Algebra Nation. And I know I still haven't sent you a kink, but someone got creative and went to Khan Academy on their own and found it all by themselves, so you can watch that video. So when you do synthetic division, here's the first step. So on the first step, you take the divisor right here and you find what's called its 0. To find its 0, you take this and you set it equal to 0 and you solve. So your answer is 1. And that's what you're going to use. You're going to do 1. So you take this 1 and you set it outside and you make this little box like this. So when I make my box, I'm going to go like this and I'm going to write it like this, make a little box around it. So that's step 1. And then I'm going to take all the coefficients and what's called the constant. A coefficient is a number in front of the variable. And again, make sure you look for place value. Nothing is missing. So I'm going to take the 3. I'm going to take the -5. And I'm going to take the constant of 2 and I'm going to write it down. Okay, so we're just setting up the problem right now. And then I'm going to draw a line leaving some space. And I'm going to drop the first number that's there. So I'm going to drop the 3. Okay, so I just set it up to begin. Remember, we're doing division. So I'm going to take this trinomial divided by, so this is the dividend divided by this divisor, and I'm looking for the quotient, the answer. So again, I'm going to put this in the box. I just took the coefficients and the constant, 3, -5, 2, drop the first one. And now we're ready to do our math. And so the math you do is you take this guy, he's your multiplier, and the steps are to multiply. So I take this 3 and I multiply it by 1. So 3 times 1 is 3. And then you add. So I add, I get -2. So now I take this -2 and I multiply these two together. So 1 times -2 is -2. And then I add, I get 0. And you're actually done doing the math. So the good news is that the last box here, I'm going to put a box around it. That's always your remainder. So my remainder is 0. And then you go backwards and you're going to say this is your constant, -2. This is your linear. There's your quotient right here. That looks like the word or. Sorry, I guess I'll put a little dot there. So your answer is, your quotient is 3x minus 2 with a remainder of 0. That's your answer. You're done. That's it. So you multiply, add, then you multiply, add. And so when I do synthetic division, I always say to you guys, think about your mama. Mama, because the rules are multiply, add, and then you keep going and going and going until there is no more to do. So synthetic division, I always say, think about your mama, and that's the rules for synthetic division. So let's do another one. So I look here, this one's written sideways. So again, this is your divisor. So step 1 that I'm going to do is I'm going to find my 0. So I'm going to take this, x plus 2, I'm going to set it equal to 0. And I'm going to get a -2. So x equals -2. So that's going to go in my box. So I'm going to put -2 I'm going to box that off. That's the one you always multiply by. And now I'm going to write down my coefficients, but notice I'm missing an x, so I'm missing the place value. So when I write my coefficients, I'm going to write 5, I'm going to write 4, I'm going to write 0 because I'm missing an x, and then I'm going to write -3. I'm going to draw a line, and then if you want to, you can put a plus sign here because remember, you're going to multiply, add, so we're going to think about mama. So let's go. So when I drop the 5, I'm going to take multiply, so I'm going to -2 times 5 is -10. Then I'm going to add, I get -6. Now we're going to go back and multiply. -2 times -6 is +12. Then I add, I get 12. Then I'm going to multiply. -2 times 12 is -24. Then when I add, I get -27. And I'm done. That's it. That's simple. Remember, the last one is your remainder. Then I go backwards. That's my constant. Put a plus because it's a positive. That's called your linear. Then if that's an x, this one has to be an x squared. And there's your quotient. There's your solution. So my final answer is, and I'll write it up here at the top so you can see it, 5x squared minus 6x plus 12, because honestly, my bad, when you have a remainder, remember you have to write it -27 over the divisor is x plus 2. So common mistakes on something like synthetic division is forgetting to change this to its opposite, because when you set it to equal to 0, that's what happens. And then another common mistake is just forgetting the rules of mama. Multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Okay, so another thing you can see if you're doing it right. So if I start out with my dividend being a square, your answer always has to be one less. It can't be the same and it can't be greater. So if that's a square, I know my answer it has to be less. If that's a cube, I know in my answer it has to be less than a cube. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down this problem, and we're going to pause it, and I want you to try this one by yourself. So I'm going to set this part. I want you to put a box here, write the coefficients, draw a line here. I'm going to put a plus here, and then I'm even going to put a box here for your remainder. So I'm going to pause. You're going to try it. We'll go back and work it. Okay, so I'm back. So hopefully you put a -3 here, and then because you set it equal to 0, and then you put a 4, you put a 5, you put a -1, you put a +3. So no terms are missing. And then I'm going to drop the 4. I'm going to multiply. -3 times 4 is -12. Then I add, I get -7. -3 times -7 is +21. When I add, I get 20. -3 times 20 is -60. When I add, I get -57. There's my remainder. Hopefully I'm on the screen. I can't tell on my phone. Or maybe off the screen a little bit. Hopefully you can see that. Then I go back. This is a +20. That's your constant. That's your x. That's your x squared. Let me put my glasses on to make sure. Well, yeah, I'm still good. So this would be then, your answer would be 4x squared minus 7x plus 20. I'll put that right here. 4x squared minus 7x plus 20 with a remainder of -57 over the divisor is x plus 3. So we got one more to go. Let me scoot this up. Ooh, look, we got a fraction, and but at least it's a half. So multiplying by a half is pretty groovy. So I'm going to set that equal to 0. When I set it equal to 0, I get a -1/2. It's always the opposite. Notice that? Set it equal to 0. Here, I'll show you. X plus 1/2. Set it equal to 0. You would subtract 1/2 from both sides, and that's how I get -1/2. Okay? Then my coefficients are, I got a 2, I got a 5, I'm missing an x, so I have to put a 0, and then a negative 3. So I draw my line, I drop my 2, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So when I start doing this, now look, I know it's a negative, but let me just ask you this. What's half of 2? Half of 2 is 1. And a negative times a positive is a negative, so I get negative 1. Then 5 minus 1 is 4. Or 5 plus a negative 1 if you want to say it that way. Then, what's half of 4? Half of 4 is 2, and a negative times a positive is a negative. Then I add, I get negative 2. Okay, again, what's half of 2? Well, we already know that's 1. And then a negative times a negative is a positive 1. So when I add here, lose 3, gain back 1, I'm at negative 2. There's my remainder. There's my constant. Put an x here, that's my linear, and it's positive 4, and then put a square here. So there's my final answer. 2x squared plus 4x minus 2, over a negative 2x plus 1/2. And we're done. That's it for notes. Peace out. Have a good day.